Had an interesting interview with the head of Hamas this weekend and asked him, could you live next to Jews? And he said yes. And he said, could you live next to Israel?
Right.
And he said no.
Right.
How are they supposed to negotiate, Mark?
They're having a hard time negotiating. I think what the American people are getting so frustrated with right now is the fact that when Israel is bombing Gaza right now, there are 2 million people living in Gaza. Only 15,000 of them are affiliated with Hamas, so that's less than 1%. Of the thousand,
the other side says, and I'll let you finish. Sure. The other side says, well, they elected Hamas, a terrorist group. What did they think was going to happen?
Right. The kids, the 8-year-olds, the 10-year-olds that are getting killed right now by Israeli bombs didn't cast a vote in that election. So right now, over 1,000 people have died in Gaza. The vast majority are civilians in Gaza.
But speaking to the fact, and it's true. And look at these pictures; they're heartbreaking. I mean, look at that baby.
He didn't cast a vote.
He doesn't know what's going on.
Not at all.
These are innocent children who have been killed in war. But the defenders of Israel say that's what happens in war. There are sometimes casualties of war, civilian casualties even, and they point out repeatedly that Hamas places its fighters and its guns and its bombs in the midst of civilians so they can use these pictures as propaganda.
It does, and that's hideous, and we should kill Hamas militants. We should be over there fighting them. But at the same time, Israel has a right to its self-defense. It also has an obligation to those people that are in Gaza right now. That's Israeli-occupied territory. It has an obligation to protect them, and in a way, by claiming self-defense and then bombing this territory, that defies any kind of international law.
In fact, in
2004, the international community came out and said, what you're doing by dropping bombs on Hamas in this territory that you're occupying and killing all these civilians is illegal. And just today, the UN Security Council came out and criticized Israel as well.
The UN Security Council has been very lopsided on this issue. Come on, they've got their thumb on the scale. But let's talk about Secretary Kerry. Do you think that this is fair? Because you heard Ralph Peters saying that he gave Hamas he was proposing that Hamas would get everything it wanted and Israel would get nothing. Israel rejected this deal before it even was made public. That's how offensive they found it.
Right. Well, Israel has...
Is he being fair?
No. First of all, Bibi Netanyahu and John Kerry go back 20 years. They have a friendship that lasts. And even that Haaretz op-ed you point to, as you mentioned, says that, John Kerry is a friend of Israel.
Then it was bash, bash, bash.
Sure, of course, which is crazy because it's giving such fodder to American conservative politicians, American Republicans that would take the side of an Israeli journalist, of a columnist in a foreign country rather than support their own administration, which just boggles my mind, but that's a separate discussion. The reason Israel is not being fair is because this proposal, as Jen Psaki came out and said today, the spokeswoman for the State Department, is almost identical to the proposal, to the plan that Egypt put out, that Egypt was suggesting 2 weeks ago, that Israel sort of made indications that it could support. Now, the thing that bears mentioning here is this proposal was leaked to the Israeli media, leaked to the press, and instead of criticizing that leak during sensitive negotiations with a topic as sensitive as Israel and Palestine, we have people like Ralph Peters coming on and criticizing Kerry, criticizing Obama, instead of the Israeli government for leaking it.
And in fairness to them, it's all over the Israeli papers. I mean, the Israeli papers and the Israeli people are criticizing the deal, and it's out there, Mark. Now, sure. I got to go. Good to see you.
Good to see you, Megan.
Well, the State Department